What it is, folks. I am the Mighty Plantain. Thanks for tuning in to this week's beer review. This time, we're going to do another variety pack. I don't know how long these guys have been around, but they are new to our area here in central Maine. Trapp Brewing. I haven't really done any research to find out if this somehow traces back to a larger brewery or not, but all the language on the box says that it's the family that inspired the movie Sound of Music. Some of you are familiar, some of you are not. I have seen the movie, not a big fan. I don't like musical theater and I don't like that throwback stuff. Just never engaged me, but hey, that's just me. It's not for me. Not every beer is for everybody either. I'm sure your opinion differs from mine here and there as well. So, all that aside, maybe they're trying to cash in on the family name. Maybe they've got some really good stuff to show us. This particular variety pack includes a Helles, a Vienna Style Lager, a Pilsner, and a Trosten. Probably not pronouncing that correctly, but that's the order I'm actually going to be tasting these in. The Helles is a golden lager in the Helles style, which means it is going to be light and crisp. The Vienna style is actually an amber lager, which is going to probably give it a little bit more body than the Helles. And then their Pilsner actually mentions a couple of hop varieties on the label, which the others don't do right up front. So I'm guessing it's going to be hoppier than the others, and probably that's a good slot to put it in, because I don't know what to expect from that Trosten. That might be a hoppy beer, it might be a beer with some different flavors. I'm not really sure. So maybe I might recommend changing the lineup after tasting these beers and seeing if one overpowers and overflavors the other. But for now, that's my thought. Hit me up in the comments or the email link down below. Let me know if you agree or disagree with that order. And let me know if you have any more information about these guys, because there's not much that I was able to find with a quick glance at the box. Again, I didn't do any real in-depth research. So we'll start this off with the Helles Lager. It says, German for bright, our Helles is an easy drinking yet surprisingly complex golden lager. So let's get this one popped open. See from here that is very, very, very light. Alright, if the others have any sort of color to them at all, then I definitely arranged these in the right order. Very light, very clear, somewhat effervescent though. It's a pale yellow in color. Reminds me of a lot of domestic beers, a lot of domestic drafts like Bud Light, Miller Lite, that sort of thing. Probably more on the closer to Coors Light than those other two, because of the really, really light color to it. Almost a watery look to it, which isn't always a bad thing, but just a very, very pale, light beer. But very, very bubbly. Getting a lot of activity there from that little laser etching there. It's getting a lot of stuff to cavitate up, a lot of bubbles. Not getting a lot of aroma here. Yeah, really nothing at all. Just a very, very slight beer smell. So it's definitely beer. There's not much going on there, honestly. I mean, it is crisp and it is very light. It's got actually a medium light mouthfeel, so it's a little heavier in the mouthfeel than you would think based on the color and the look of the beer. It does have some body to it. Nothing really jumped out at me. I mean, there's hops and malt in there. Ooh, pardon. It's basically, it's a beer flavored beer. It is very easy to drink, and honestly, in terms of complexity and the strength of the flavor, I would really put this somewhere between the Coors Light and the Miller Lite that I mentioned before. It's less watery than Coors Light, just as easy to drink though, but not quite as flavorful in terms of the hops or the malt variety as a Miller Lite. It's beer, and that's really what I can say about it. It's not bad. It's not unpleasant. There's nothing skunky about it, which, honestly, the Coors Light and Miller Lite that I mentioned before, and I hate to compare it to those brands because those are just mass-produced beers without a lot of subtlety or flavor to them. But this is right around in that same category. But it does not have that slightly skunky flavor that you get with those beers. No matter what you do with a Coors Light, a Miller Lite, a Bud Light, those basic domestic light beers, there is some slight skunkiness to them. I don't care what anybody says, I always detect a bit of it. And I'm talking fresh beer with a great date on the can or bottle, and I still get that slight bit of skunkiness to it. This does not have that. So, pardon. Those typically rate a below average rating for me. This comes in a solid 2.5. 2.5 out of 5. It is an average beer. It's easy to drink. It's light. It's crisp. It's refreshing. There's no particular flavor or anything about the beer that's standing out and blowing me away. It's not impressing me either, but it's beer. It's a solid beer, and it is a beer, and it is not disappointing me. It's not unpleasant, but it's just not impressing me in any way, shape, or form either. So, 2.5 out of 5, it is beer. I'm going to finish this up because I'm actually enjoying it, you know. And then I'm going to hit the next one. We'll see what they have in store. Okay, so Von Trapp Variety Pack, beer number 2. The Vienna Style Lager, which is a crisp, full-bodied, traditional amber lager, which, like I said, would put it after the Golden Lager in a typical taste lineup. Keep that right over here. While I'm pouring this one out, don't forget to hit me up down below with a like and a share, and make sure to subscribe to my channel. That way, if you are getting any value out of these, taking some of the mystery out of your local beer cooler, you'll make sure to get a notification every time I post a new video, typically on Fridays, although lately it's been Wednesdays and Fridays as I have a plethora of pre-filmed reviews and I'm trying to get them all posted before the beers become irrelevant. So, Vienna Style Lager, traditional amber, full-bodied, they say, amber lager. Well, right away, you can see the difference in color. This is more of an amber color, obviously. We went from golden to amber. It's got some bit of brown in there. Getting more brown as the beer gets thicker up towards the globe of the glass here. But already I'm liking the color of this better than the other one. I'm a fan of dark beers, so the darker the better. Although that's not always a full indicator of how great the beer is going to be. Now this one's slightly less effervescent than the last one. I'm seeing a lot fewer bubbles coming up from the bottom. It is actually, and I always wipe the glass because a little bit of condensation forms on the outside here. So I'm not getting all weird here, but whenever you see me doing that, that's actually just wiping the condensation off so I can get a better look at the beer itself. It's slightly cloudier than the last beer as well, which is sometimes an indication that it's going to have a heavier mouthfeel. Similar to the last one, I'm not getting a lot of aroma off of that. so I'm not picking up on anything really in terms of aroma. Maybe a little bit of hoppiness there. And so again, there's a little bit of hoppiness, a little bit of maltiness. It's got a slightly heavier mouthfeel than the last one. This is about a medium light to medium heavy mouthfeel, somewhere in that neighborhood. It's still not really in that middle ground, but it's heavier than the last one. Not a lot of big flavor coming through. It's a little hoppy, but I'm not getting any particular notes. Slight, just overall hoppy bitterness. A pretty solid malt backbone. Medium body, of course, but nothing really standing out. I'm going to put this one at a 2.5 out of 5 as well. It's a good beer. It's not impressing me or blowing me away, but it's not disappointing me either. It's an amber lager, and it's good. It's decent, but just not impressive. Almost getting a bit of a hint of a brewed tea taste in the aftertaste, so that's something. That's something to be said for. That's a bit of an unusual flavor. It's not unique. A lot of beers have that brewed tea taste to them, but this is it's very subtle. It's very subtle, but not bad. Not bad. It's an average beer. It's another average beer. It's distinctly different in flavor and character from their golden lager, which is something to be said for it, but pardon. You know, that's kind of obviously going to happen if you're brewing that particular character of beer. But again, just an average beer. Nothing that's impressive or blowing me away, but it's not disappointing me either. I'll sit and drink this all day long. So I'm going to finish this one up, and we'll get into the third beer. Okay, so beer number 3 in the Von Trapp variety pack. Got their Pilsner Lager. It's a smooth, crisp Bohemian Pilsner with a harmonious blend of Pearl and Saaz hops. So this is why I went ahead and put this at number 3, because it specifically mentions the hops in there on the label, which the other two have not, which means this is probably going to be a hoppier beer, and that hoppy bitterness can overpower some of the more subtle tastes of other beers. Not that we've seen anything really subtle from these yet, but just in case, wanted to be on the safe side. And then of course that last one, the Trosten. I know I'm mangling the pronunciation. Somebody correct me. That one, don't know what to expect from it, so I think we're playing it safe by putting it last. So let's go ahead and check this one out. We're back to a lighter look, more golden color. It's a Pilsner Lager, so of course we're going to expect that. It's cloudier though than the other one. I don't know how I'd characterize that color. It's almost a lemony yellow. I guess that's the closest I can come, is the lemony yellow, but very pale. A little bit cloudy though. It is slightly cloudy. And mildly effervescent. There's not a lot of bubbles coming up from that. Even less actually than the amber lager. So I have a feeling this is going to be a heavier mouthfeel beer than expected. Probably not too heavy though. But not very effervescent. There is a bit of hoppy bitterness in the aroma on that beer, which I haven't gotten from the other two. I mean, slightly beer smelling from the other two, but this one, just an overall hoppy bitterness. It's subtle. It's not up front, and it's not very pronounced. And there's no specific notes there that I'm getting. It's just an overall hoppy bitterness. Yeah, no subtleties there. That's a hoppy beer. It's not overly hoppy. But it is obviously hoppy. And again, no specific notes coming out, just an overall hoppy bitterness. Maybe just a hint of pine and citrus. Just a hint, though. And that might actually be counter to the specific hop varieties that they mention on the label, but that's what I'm getting out of it. Everybody's taste and experience is unique, so bear that in mind. But I am getting a slight hint of pine and citrus, but mostly just an overall hoppy bitterness that doesn't have any real subtlety to it. It's got a bit of a medium mouthfeel. So again, not a bad beer. Nothing that's really blowing me away or impressing me. Personally, I'm going to put this at a 3 out of 5, just because the hoppiness separates it from the crowd. And I'm a fan of hoppy beers anyway, but the fact that it's actually being a hoppy beer versus just being beer that the other two are sitting at. This has a characteristic that's making it stand out. And it's different from the others. I mean, it's the first one of these three that's actually had a specific character to it other than being beer. Yes, this is a golden lager, this is an amber lager, but this particular Pilsner lager has stepped out of the crowd so far and distinguished itself with some hoppy bitterness. So I'm going to put that at a 3 out of 5. It's not great, it's not crappy, and it's not impressing me or blowing me away, but it is slightly above average just because of the fact that it does have one specific characteristic that stands out. From the overall fact that it is a beer. So I'm going to finish this one up and we'll get on to the fourth and final beer, which I'm actually looking forward to because I have no idea what to expect from it. So we finally come to the last beer in the Von Trapp variety pack. We have the Trosten Lager. Now I know I'm mispronouncing that. It says here, German for comfort. Our Trosten is a dark smoked lager full of Gemütlichkeit. Yeah, if I'm mispronouncing the name of the beer, I just murdered the shit out of that word. Gemütlichkeit. Gemütlichkeit. Somebody who actually speaks Bavarian? Austrian? Yeah, whatever the language is in Austria. Somebody who actually speaks it. Please correct me on my pronunciation. I want to know what the hell I'm saying. So I saved this one for last because I wasn't sure what to expect from it. I mean, the others are characterized as a specific beer style, and then of course the last one there gave us, it's a Pilsner lager, but it gave us a couple of different hop varieties that it called out on the label, which the others haven't done, so I figured it would be hoppier than the rest. This one might be less hoppy, so I might have made a mistake in placing the hoppier beer above this, ahead of this one, but it's only one way to find out, right? Oh. Now, this is by far the darkest beer of them all, which doesn't necessarily mean that I was right in placing it last, because dark beers belong ahead of hoppy beers in terms of a beer flight, because the hoppiness of a hoppy beer will overpower any subtle flavors that the malt characteristics bring forth in a darker beer. So this may have been a mistake. This might have belonged before that last Pilsner, but we're going to find out. So that is a quite dark beer. It's a coffee-colored beer. There is some light getting through there. I can see some penetration in the narrower parts of the glass. It's actually slightly translucent, meaning there's just a very little small amount of light getting through. And even in the thicker part of the glass, I can still see a bit of light penetrating. So it's not completely dark and opaque, but it is a very, very dark beer. Compared to the rest, it's practically midnight. Not very effervescent at all. Not that I tried to put a really good head on that, because again, that remains one of my challenges. But, pardon, there is no real head on that, and there are no bubbles coming up from that cavitation site on the bottom of the glass. There is nothing happening there. I'm getting nothing off of the aroma, really. So it puts it in the same class as these first two beers. Really just an overall, it's a beer in terms of the smell, but there are no subtle notes coming off of that. I'm thinking this might have belonged before the hoppier beer in terms of tasting. Nope. Nope, this is right where it belongs, as far as I'm concerned. There's a lot of spiciness coming off of that. Subtle hop characteristic, just a very subtle hoppy bitterness, but there is something in here. There's something spicy about it. Not hot spicy, just spicy. Setting it apart from the others. It might not actually be overwhelming, the hoppy bitterness of the last beer. Now, I have been flushing / cleansing the palate in between all of these with plain old water. But as any experienced beer drinker will tell you, you can drink a 20-ounce bottle of water and it still won't flush out all of the hoppy bitterness of a hoppy brew completely. You still have a bit of that lingering. I'm just looking because there's nothing on the label that tells me, pardon again, specifically what went into the spice blend on this beer. There's something different about it. And they're also not specific about what they smoked. Smoked lager. So did they smoke the malt? What was in the malt variety? What was in the malt blend? Were those malts smoked? Or the hops smoked? I'm tempted to go with the malt was smoked versus the hops, because this almost has a whiskey / liquor undertone to it. Very, very subtle, but it doesn't remind me of the smoked hops that I've seen in some Hefeweizens. It's actually perplexing me a little bit. It's got a different, unique, and odd flavor. It's not blowing me away, but it's definitely standing out from the other 3 brews. I gotta put this in a 3.5 out of 5, which is standing above and beyond the crowd as it comes to the Trapp brews, because the others, we got a couple of average beers. This one's just slightly above average, but that's a personal note because it's hoppy. This one is different and interesting in the fact that I can't really tell for sure what was smoked in there. Was it the hops or was it the malt? I suspect it was the malt, but it could have been the hops. And the fact that it's just got a different and unique flavor, a smoky, roasted taste to it. That's just kind of lingering. I gotta put this in a 3.5, which is a bit above average, which is making it a standout among the crowd. So ultimately, we have a couple of average brews, a slightly above average beer, which is only getting those points because of the hoppiness, and no specific hop notes, just an overall hoppy bitterness. And then this odd little number that's getting a 3.5, which puts it a bit above average for me. There's nothing in this variety pack that's blowing me away, but here's where this fits in to the overall scheme of things. As far as I'm concerned, we all have friends and family that we wish we could introduce to the world of craft beer. They just don't get it. They don't want to get it. They don't want to try anything different. You know what this is? This is a gateway 12-pack. Bring this to a family gathering. Bring this to a party. You can get people roped in with these first 2. I mean, they'll grab this Hell's, start them off with that. Tastes a lot like what they're used to. Coors Light, Bud Light, Miller Light. Not so different that it scares them, though. Then you move them up to the Vienna Style, the Amber Lager. It's a little heavier, a little different, but still just a beer. Ooh, pardon. Then you hit them with these 2. One or the other. The Pilsner Lager. There's your hops. Trosten Lager. I suspect that's your smoked malt characteristic. So, 1, 2, they're still on board. This, or this, are going to be the two that change their mind. They're either going to love it, they're going to hate it, and depending on which one of these they love and which one they hate, that'll tell you whether they're more into hoppy beers or more into darker, heavier, more malted beers. And that's going to give you a direction to steer them in the future. So that's why I say this is a gateway 12 pack. None of these beers are particularly blowing me away or impressing me, but they are good beers. They're solid beers. They just don't stand out from the crowd enough to really impress me. But you got 2 beers in this 12 pack, 4 bottles that anybody will drink. Then, I'm sorry, 2 beers in this one, 8 bottles that anybody will drink. Then you've got these 2 varieties. That's the 4 bottles. Those are the ones that are going to decide which direction you steer them in. Do you steer them towards the stouts, the porters, your Hefeweizens, and all those types of beers based on the fact that they like a smoky malt? Or are you going to steer them towards your IPAs and those types of beers based on the fact that they like the hoppy bitterness of this one? So it's a very great tool for introducing people to the world of craft brewing. But for those who are already initiated, it's not going to impress you that much. Save your money unless you're opening the gates. But hey, that's just my impression of the whole thing. If you agree or disagree, I want to hear from you. Hit me up down below in the comments or the email section. Am I right? Am I wrong? Tell me. I want to hear from you. Because honestly, when it comes right down to it, everything in the world of beer is just a matter of opinion and personal taste. So I'd love to discuss it with you. Till next time, folks. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with me through the full 12 pack. I know these videos can be a little tedious at times, especially when I go into great detail about the analysis of the beers, like I suspect I did this time around, because I'm pretty tipsy at this point. They're good, but they're above average in the alcohol by volume content, I'll tell you that. Cheers. A little while back, we did a bit of a comparison with the Not Your Father's Hard Root Beer review.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for the beer, man. So, highly recommended by you. The Extreme Beer Fest this weekend. We'll be able to get a hold of, I believe it's the American